The time is now 6:32 p.m. It is Monday, November the 2nd, 2020, and I will call this meeting of the Board of Trustees for Goose Creek Consolidated Independent School District to order. Mr. Samson, was this meeting properly posted?
Yes, President.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. At this time, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Conklin for opening exercises.
Good evening, Board President Bush, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. Tonight's opening exercise will be provided by students from Robert E. Lee High School.
Dr. Conklin, hold just a minute.
Not working.
Here we go.
All right, we're gonna start over. Good morning, President Woods, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. Tonight's opening exercises will be provided by students from Robert E. Lee High School. We'll first begin with a prayer led by Mr. Clem. If everyone will please rise.
Everyone, please bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together tonight to celebrate our school district. I ask a special blessing on all of our teachers of the year that are present or not tonight, and congratulate them on their great efforts. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom as we make decisions that will impact our school district tonight. And I ask for safe travel for all to their homes tonight. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, the pledges tonight will be led by Raquel Aubergine and Kisuwanda Odulam.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, tonight we will feature the Lee, oh, you may be seated. Thank you. Tonight we will feature the Lee High School Celebrities Drill Team performing their halftime routine. They are under the direction of Alice Henrichsen, Jamie Minyard, and Principal Dr. Ram Crespo.
Military officers are Captain Mariah Mendieta, Captain Stacy Eastles, Captain Cecilia Guerra, and Colonel Raquel Araguin. Head Spirit Officer Kizawanda Odlum, Spirit Officer Abigail Orozco, Spirit Officer Nijay Roberson, and Spirit Officer Sarah Sanchez.
Good evening. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce to you our annual CTE Image Award winners. Annually, CTE staff and teachers nominate their top business and education partner company, the individual who has championed their cause the most, and the program that has made the most profound effect on its students for these annual awards. The district winners are then submitted to the Gulf Coast CTE Association, and we're proud to announce that for the second year in a row, all three of our nominations were selected also as Gulf Coast CTE Image Award winners. Our first Image Award winner is Julie Villarreal of Samson Controls Incorporated. Julie was nominated by Monica Swift, the CTE Student Workforce Connection Liaison. Julie is the HR manager for Samson Controls. She has been with the company for 16 years, and her dedication to the company is evident in her partnering efforts with Goose Creek. Julie's partnership with GCCISD began with providing 2 internship opportunities to students. Since then, she's steadily become more involved in CTE programs throughout the district, especially in manufacturing and STEM. She serves on the district CTE steering committee. She has served on career cluster business panels and the Manufacturing and Industrial Maintenance Academy Advisory Board at Stewart Career Tech. Julie also ensures that Samson Controls has representation on the STEM Advisory Board as well. She's instrumental in the donation of funds from Samson and for teaching materials and equipment. Just last year, Julia saw the need to add another internship so that a potential student could be exposed to learn the HR side of the company. She truly understands the benefits of students having those hands-on jobs-related experiences and is heavily involved in many of our work-based learning activities. Julie. Next, we want to recognize Chick-Fil-A Baytown. Chick-Fil-A was nominated by Kelly Start, our former CTE specialist, who's now an administrator at Goose Creek Memorial. Chick-Fil-A has won the Business Education Partnership Award. They have been sponsored to numerous school events throughout Goose Creek since they opened their doors. They do an amazing job supporting Goose Creek students from elementary to high school. They're an active member of the Global Business Academy Advisory Board, serving on several subcommittees. A representative from Chick-fil-A has played an active part in helping the Business Academy prepare for national recognition. Chick-fil-A has stepped up to help with several classes, including bringing in a team to do mock interviews, guest speaking, customer service, branding, and many other topics, as well as mentoring students one-on-one. They provide 3 practicum positions for our students in the practicum in business management class with a very detailed and specific 10-week course. Chick-fil-A provides students and alumni with part-time and full-time positions in customer service and management. They employed 19 current GCCISD students, mostly through our career preparation courses. 6 graduates and 6 leadership positions are filled there by Goose Creek alumni. So Chick-fil-A on Garth has been an amazing partner to GCM and our whole district. The last of the 3 Image Awards is the Showcase of Excellence Award. The STEM Academy at Lee High School was nominated by Carlin Caldwell, our CTE STEM specialist. The Showcase of Excellence Award winners must demonstrate distinction in many categories: sustained excellence, community partnerships, transferability of credit, cost effectiveness, student impact, innovation, and student activities. The STEM Academy at Lee High School has accomplished a great deal in a short amount of time, being recognized as a designated T-STEM Academy to becoming the National Career Academy Coalition Model Academy. The STEM Academy has been sponsored by and partnered with ExxonMobil since its inception in 2014. ExxonMobil, Samson Controls, Covestro, the City of Baytown, Lee College, and the Grad Cafe have all been pillars on the STEM Academy Advisory Board. These valuable partners also provide field experiences for their students, classroom guest speakers, teacher externships, mock interview panelists, career night attendees, trip sponsors, and monetary donations when needed. The Robert E. Lee T-STEM Academy truly lives its mission to being dedicated to developing the whole student to ensure success in STEM career fields, and the faculty, staff, and industry partners take pride in producing a competent and passionate workforce for the future.
Good evening. Every year, all 28 GCCISD schools select a Campus Teacher of the Year. This teacher completes a questionnaire and submits it to the Communications Department. An outside committee reads the questionnaires, redacted of names and schools, and selects a district elementary and secondary Teacher of the Year. Their applications are then submitted to Region 4, where they compete for Region 4 Teacher of the Year. The selections of our Teachers of the Year last spring looked a little different. Principals conducted nominations and elections for Campus Teachers of the Year by email, binders including questionnaires of all 28 campus teachers, and delivered to a committee to review. Principals created a video announcing their Campus Teacher of the Year and emailed it to the Communications Department. And Carrie Pryor-Newman created a video that was posted on our website and social media. We have been waiting since May to recognize these deserving teachers. And although this is not a gala that we usually have, we want to give them the opportunity to receive their plaques and have a photo taken. If their principals are here tonight, we ask them to please come forward with their Teacher of the Year. We want to also recognize James Becker Thompson, Special Education Teacher of the Year, and our Houston Area Association of Bilingual Educators Teachers of the Year tonight. We are proud of these excellent teachers and thank them for serving as role models to our campuses as we face the challenges of 2020. Y'all are already here, so I don't have to call you down. Thank you. Ms. Ritter, please come forward to present your award.
President Wood, members of the board, and Dr. O'Brien, it is a great honor to present the James Becker Thomason Special Education Teacher of the Year Award for the 2019-20 school year to Antoinette Tony Hendricks, Life Skills Teacher at Alamo Elementary. As the 45th recipient of this award, established by Dr. Richard Thompson, a retired ophthalmologist, in honor of his late brother James, who benefited from special education services. Mrs. Hendricks' classroom is a model life skills classroom for the district, and tonight she joins many other excellent teachers selected through the years for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Moreno Rocio will recognize our Habe Teachers of the Year.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees. Each year, the Houston Area Association for Bilingual and ESL Education, HABE, recognizes 3 outstanding district bilingual ESL teachers of the year from each participating school district in the Houston area. We want to thank you, Beacon Credit Union, and in particular Adelina Afshar, because she's the one who donated the plaques that our teachers are going to receive today. She was a former bilingual student in the district, and she has a passion and support, wants to support our bilingual teachers every year. Please help me in congratulating our 3 district winners. The first one, Alexandria Wagner, Kinder ESL Elementary Teacher of the Year from Hopper Primary. Our second teacher of the year is Daniela Delgadillo, 5th grade bilingual, a newcomer teacher from Alamo Elementary. And last but not least, Melanie Eastman, our ESL 6th grade English language arts teacher of the year from Orisman Unity School. Congratulations.
Okay, it is now time to recognize our campus teachers of the year. Our first is Erin Stripling from Alamo Elementary. Erin has been teaching 15 years. Next is Teresa Hall from Benuelos Elementary. Teresa is in her 16th year of teaching. Jolene Gilmore from Bowie Elementary, and she has just started her 32nd teacher of the year, sorry. Ann Garrett from Clark Elementary. Ann has been teaching 6 years. Kelly Campbell Connor from Crockett Elementary, and Kelly just started her 20th year in teaching. Letitia Tate from De Zavala Elementary. Letitia has been teaching 15 years. Claire Lukey from Hopper Primary. Claire is beginning her 7th year of teaching. Sonia Clifton Flores from Lamar Elementary. Sonia has been teaching for 6 years. Ann Boring from San Jacinto Elementary. Ann has been teaching for 25 years. Shannon Chance from Asheville Smith Elementary, and she is starting her 22nd year of teaching. Amber Wheeler from Travis Elementary. Amber has been teaching for 12 years. Jennifer Simpson from Victoria Walker, and Jennifer has been teaching for 10 years. Sharnae Jones from Baytown Junior, and Sharnae has begun her 10th year of teaching. Andrea Mooney from CBJ. Andrea has been teaching for 5 years. Alicia Babin from Highlands Junior School. Alicia is starting her 6th year of teaching. Melanie Eastman from Horace Mann Junior School. Melanie is starting her 5th year. Adam Trunkell from Robert E. Lee High School. Adam is in his 13th year of teaching. Nope. Okay, so Amy Maddie from Ross S. Sterling, and Amy has been teaching 14 years. Eduardo Cesedo from Peter E. Highlands. Eduardo is in his 32nd year of teaching. Teresa Jones from Point, and Teresa has been teaching 11 years. Ian Sobchak from Stewart Career Technical High School. Ian is in his 6th year of teaching. Our district elementary teacher of the year is Maribel Cancino from Highlands Elementary. Maribel was not able to attend tonight, so her principal, Blanca Capetillo, will come up and take the award for her. She has been teaching 10 years. Our district secondary teacher of the year is Jacqueline Scales from Goose Creek Memorial High School. Jacqueline has been teaching for 19 years. Thanks to all our teachers of the year who could be here with us tonight, and we hope everyone has a successful 2020-21 school year.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our teachers of the year, all of our educators for all of their diligence in the classroom with their students, and I'm glad we were able to recognize everything they do. At this time, we are moving to citizens' participation on the agenda. Ms. Garcia, do we have any signed up for citizen participation? None signed up for this evening. So we will continue on the agenda to number 5, approval of minutes. Tonight we have on the agenda October 19th, 2020, regular board meeting minutes. Are there any questions or comments about minutes as presented?
Move for approval.
Second.
So I have a motion from Mr. Laredo and a second from Mr. Clem to approve the minutes as presented. Any other comments or questions? None at this time. All in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
Was that Mr. Cotter? I hear you there. Okay. So we have 6, 4, and we have 0 against and 1 not here. Okay. So motion passes. Minutes for October 19th, 2020 accepted as presented. Moving on the agenda to number 6, discussion items. Tonight we have superintendent's reports. So I will turn it over to Dr. O'Brien.
Good evening, school board. This evening for our superintendent's report, we have the first presentation will be from the Goose Creek CIC District Improvement Plan and Campus Improvement Plans, presented by Ms. Jackson and I believe a team of administrators, including Ms. Thomas, Mr. Foxworth. Am I getting ahead of myself?
I'm just changing slides.
Okay.
We'll see.
We do have principals that will be joining in the presentation as well. With that, Ms. Jackson, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I feel like I might have just been up here, but we're going to do this again. So we're doing things a little differently this year. And we will start off with highlighting a area from our district improvement plan. You have the plans with you, and then we will present 6 schools that are targeted improvement in the areas that they're going to target. So the first area that we want to highlight is the Pre-K Academy and the new focus we're going with in that direction. And the reason we're highlighting that, if you'll switch the slide. Next. Okay, is it follows our strategic goal 1, which is to educate our students and prepare them for future success in college and career and military readiness. This requires that our students develop a solid foundation in their ability to read and solve equations. Goal 2 is that we want to provide a well-balanced and appropriate curriculum for our students by providing high-quality pre-K program for identified students and meeting the state requirement of 100% of students being kindergarten ready. Goal 2 is that we implement a full-day high-quality pre-K program for students that are 4 years old. We review the state required assessment data and plan curriculum needs that will increase student success. We will monitor the implementation of this curriculum and ensure that we improve student success. And that, this is the most important, design and develop the staffing and instructional support for the early childhood centers. And that's what we really want to talk to you about tonight. So Jennifer.
Hi, good evening, Dr. O'Brien and President Wood and Board of Trustees. I'm honored to share with you this evening. Stephen Covey tells us that to begin with the end in mind means to start with a clear understanding of our destination. It means to know where you're going so you better understand where you are now, so all of your steps are in the right direction. So how can we look at our youngest students and envision for them a life where they're collaborative, dynamic leaders who are thinking critically? I think we have to begin from day 1, and so that's our plan. Okay. So under our current model, on our best year, just over half of our students were ready for kindergarten. This is pre-K data going into kindergarten. And in the 2 years ago, in the last 2 years, we had roughly 30% of our students kindergarten ready. So our goal, our vision is for all students to be pre-K ready, even over-prepared for kindergarten. We want them to have the executive function, social emotional skills, and academic vocabulary to excel. We may never get to 100%, but in order to achieve goals that we've never met, we have to be willing to do things we've never done. So what we envision is for students to be learning a little bit differently. Student learning will revolve around a concept. For example, if students are learning about space, everything that they do will be about space. They'll be reading books about space, learning letters and vocabulary revolving around space. Their math will be counting moons and measuring planets. Their science and social studies will revolve around the technology that they use at NASA. So everything in the space classroom will be about space. Teachers will still read plenty of books, and students will do traditional learning also, but the difference will be that students will be talking and moving, responding using total physical response to reinforce the skills and concepts they're learning. Lastly, students will be collaborating with their peers. One of the big key focuses is for students to have meals as a family. They'll be sitting, passing food, having conversations like we do with our own children about the food that we're eating and learning vocabulary and just good manners and socialization skills at lunch. So according to Hart and Risley's research, there is a big disparity between the amount of encouragement that students in poverty and students in the homes of professionals receive. So that ends up with a huge deficit in social emotional learning for students who live in poverty. So we would like to partner with Fueling Brains to give students executive function. By doing so, we will be teaching executive function just like we teach academic skills. So we'll be also assessing and progress monitoring how students are doing with their executive function so that we can make progress and make comparisons and give students interventions based on their executive functioning skills. So in the left brain classroom, students will, or for the left brain part of the day, students will be doing lessons and activities in an environment that focuses on left brain learning. The model during that time will be the Montessori approach, and students will be doing hands-on learning with real-life objects and learning vocabulary through that. In the right brain classroom, students, their environment acts as a teacher itself, and by creating learning experiences, students have an opportunity to be completely immersed in their learning, and their interests guide and shape kind of where they go with their learning, and the arts are integrated in the right brain classroom. Lastly, a large part of the day students will spend doing movement, so they'll be doing PE, but also organized, structured activities outside and inside the building, but everything is organized and structured around the brain functions. So a sample schedule will show you that there are parts of the day that will continue to be traditional, but then a vast majority of the day will be an experience-based learning where students are doing conceptual learning around whatever concept and experience they are in. And then also a large portion of the day will be in movement. So students in this environment, students rotate through experiences rather than classrooms. And in addition to gaining the basic pre-K knowledge of letters and numbers, they also learn vocabulary, self-regulation, collaboration, and problem solving. So our vision is to combine the overall idea of Huckabee's Jandruco model with the brain-based immersion learning through Fueling Brains to create a curriculum that improves student vocabulary, also student social emotional learning, and that will best meet our student needs, and then our students will be better prepared for kindergarten and beyond. Thank you.
Okay, any questions before we move on to Robert E. Lee? Okay, thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Dr. Crespo?
Okay, good evening. Our first goal will be to strengthen support for improving English language proficiency in order to increase the percentage of students in 9th through 12th who meet the EL growth progress measure by a minimum of 15% in Domain 3 of the accountability system during the 2021 school year. And you can see my bullet points on there. I'm going to have some talking points for each one. We're going to track baseline data through prior TELPAS performance and placement exams, baseline data that has allowed us to use a measurement prior to providing interventions or before we start teaching those particular students. It is collected through various measures, including percentage accuracy, frequency, duration, rate, and intervals. This is important to help us consider how interventions or instructional data will be used to ensure consistency. We will have intentional walkthroughs as a leadership team using the English Language Proficiency Standards, ELPS 2 through 12 Leader Pathway Rubric. This will allow us to enhance coaching conversations, increase staff capacity, and improve campus performance. We have also used the district bilingual department support. Sheila Chavera has been very essential in helping our students and teachers this school year and working with our teachers to build their capacity and providing them with research-based strategies and tools to improve instruction for our ELs. She has worked with our classroom aides on how they can better assist our students and work closely with our teachers. Sheila will be teaming up with our ESL teachers tomorrow to present sheltered instruction SIUP ESL strategies for our teachers working with our ELs in non-ESL specific classrooms. In goal 2, the State STAR data tells us that although our ELs have shown growth in the past 5 years, they still need additional targeted support in Tier 1 instruction with interventions and enrichment. That will be progress monitored for the 2021 school year. Once again, we will track baseline data through prior EOC results. We will evaluate data received through campus formative assessments and curriculum-based assessments for ELA and math specifically. We have one intervention period that we will be implementing, most likely starting in the second semester, mainly because we're trying to get everything situated with our current condition. But during Gander time, we will pull out our EL students into the computer lab and place them in small groups for individualized instruction and interventions, targeted interventions, and Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, TELPAS practice. They practice the listening and speaking components of the TELPAS. This gives our students a foundation of familiarity and ease of speaking with their headphones on and the mode of that specific test. Our ESL department will help review data from TELPAS, benchmark, and CBAs and assist students with goal setting and achievement tracking through assessments and individual conferences. We will also use the district bilingual department support to help us review the data.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Crespo? Okay, if I can now pass it to Ms. Cepeda.
Good evening. For Horace Mann, our goal is to utilize regular academic assessments, both formative and summative, to analyze student performance, to make decisions about overall instruction programs, including the curriculum deficiencies, thank you, and provide input on how to improve instruction and assessments in the tested curriculum. So as you guys are well aware, Horace Mann was our only school in the district to receive an F rating, although Domain 1 and Domain 2 are the state level, and we did receive a C overall from the state. We also received a B in relative performance, but when you look at Domain 3, which is our federal, that's where we have a lot of growth to make. And so if you look at this, closing the gaps, that's the Domain 3. We actually only hit 4 out of the possible 47 targets. And so that's a huge concern for me, as well as everyone sitting in this room. When you look at academic achievement, we only had 3 out of the 18 targets that we actually received a yes in. When it came to the growth status, we had 0 of 18. The ELP kids, the ELL kids, they were 0 for 1, and then the student success was 1 out of 10. So what I'm looking at whenever I came over to Horace Mann from Alamo, what I discovered, and how to kind of correct this, because no means, is an F ever acceptable. Coming from Alamo, having the A and the 6 distinctions for 3 years in a row, I'm going to use that same process that we used over there. And so what I did first was to really look at what was going on. And what I discovered was that the teacher lesson planning and the lack of the use of the PLC process has led students to not be held accountable for their learning and teachers for their teaching. Students do not self-evaluate, nor do they track their own progress. Teachers have not engaged with students with rigorous lessons, and closing the gap is a priority due to us only meeting the 4 out of 47 targets. So the way that we're going to correct this is with great Tier 1 instruction. That's the first time a student sees instruction. It has to be, the best instruction they're going to get. We can't rely on, intervention after the fact. And so one of the things that we'll do is I will use our professional learning community process that I used over at Alamo with Fidelity. It's a checklist, and in that, it's going to help me teach the teachers how to create assessments that reflect the appropriate rigor level. We're also going to teach the staff how to really look at data and how to disaggregate it, and what does it actually mean. When you talk about, the federal guidelines in Domain 3, that's a really hard topic to look at and truly understand, but they do know it now because we've already had some lessons on that. We also are looking at engagement. We can't have our students sit and be passive, so we're going to do that through instructional strategies like think, pair, share, speaking in complete sentences, using some AVID strategies that they've used in the past, and then of course having once the data is evaluated, we need to implement interventions for those kiddos that are struggling. The kids that have come to us, it's not just a Horace Mann issue, so we know that we do have some gaps that we need to close along the way. So we are going to have very purposeful interventions with our best qualified teachers and not our paras doing intervention for them. We're also going to have our administrators attend weekly planning sessions with the teachers, and they'll have that checklist and they'll be the ones guiding that to make sure that we actually do all of the steps that we need to do. And then, of course, at the end of each 6 weeks, having data conferences with teachers, and it'll be a one-on-one. So there is no hiding behind your peers when you're in a meeting. It'll be a one-on-one, and just having a real conversation with the teachers about what's going well, what support do they still need, where do they see us excelling, and still, if there are some needs, then how do we help that, and how do I what do I need to get for them from the district support, which has been amazing. I'm going to tell you, I've been super excited about being at Horace Mann and just the support that everyone has given me. And I'm going to tell you right now that, it's very different this year than what I've heard from last year. But I can tell you that we have so many teachers that are, I use the phrase in it to win it, and they really are. And so it's been great because they're excited to learn. And they're very thankful that they have somebody that's, teaching them what they truly need to know to be able to get the best from our students. So this is our plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Andrea?
Question.
I didn't hear what he said.
Sorry, let me turn the mic. How many CIS positions do you have on your campus?
We have 3. So we have a math, science, and ELA.
They're all coaching?
They are. They're in the classrooms. That I actually had a coach the other day text me and tell me that one of the teachers that has kind of always been a little bit passive has asked her to come into the classroom and model for that teacher. So it's been really good. They're doing a great job.
Okay, can I get Ash one more?
Yeah. So this situation with Horace Mann, how long has it been going on?
So the best I've only really looked back probably the last 6 years, having the principal that was there the 2 years prior to myself, and then I think the principal before that. So it's just kind of just become like if no one's in the hallway looking, the kids are going to do what they want to do. And so it's just, I haven't really focused on the past. I really kind of want to just drive it forward and just starting with, what I bring to the table to help them. And they are all very, very receptive of what we're doing.
So this is a problem that's been going on for more than 10 years, maybe?
Oh, I really don't know.
Maybe 6 years or something like that.
With the accountability, Mr. Samson, with the accountability system, the one we have now, it's
it's come to light. The Moak and Casey report that comes out, Horace Mann is one of the top at-risk campuses, and they just need that extra support. And so that's what we're providing, is that extra support. And we believe with Mrs. Zepeda there and the administrative teams there that we're going to be able to make a difference there. So yeah, but it's been going on for a few years.
So we had never tried to address it, as far as teacher hiring, moving teachers around, or anything like that, for us trying to make it better through the years.
Yes, and we've seen some good progress. But like I said, with the new accountability system, they focus on different things at different times. And so we're focusing on those things, like not just the intervention kids, but we're also focusing on those kids that need enrichment as well, would be an example.
So being Horace Mann is where it is, how many other schools in the district fall in that level as Horace Mann is right now?
Mr. Samson, this is, we kind of handpicked some of our campuses that are struggling, and that's who you're hearing from. We all have our struggles, but she's the only one that's received an F, and she is working diligently to make sure that that goes away.
So
let me say this, Mr. Sampson. It's in one domain, and it was in domain 3 that F was there. When you compare to campuses that look like Horace Mann, they received a B rating. Okay. So that's the fair comparison. When you take a campus that looks like Horace Mann with the same economically disadvantaged percentages, the same migrant, the same special ed, when you take a look at that and you compare that to campuses that look just like Horace Mann was rated a B. Okay? So, but there's other areas that we need to improve on, and one of those was domain 3, and that's what we wanted to share with you guys tonight.
Okay.
If I can make a comment also, I know that there was some challenges that have been met at the elementary that directly, I know y'all have more than one that feeds to you guys, but the challenges that were at Days of Olive for a little while. Mm-hmm. And I know that Mr. Cobb, I saw him earlier.
He's still here.
Mr. Cobb, I know has been working really hard as well at that. And I think looking at from that perspective and having a good plan and bringing in some good people into that school. You know, I know that Ms. Bites did a lot of good work out there, and I think it has been going on for a little bit, Mr. Sampson, but I'm glad to see that, you know, there's some good effort out there that you guys are doing. Like I said, I'm hoping that, you know, it's a perfect example of like kind of creating this vertical alignment, or I guess vertical synergy, working with them. I know that Asheville Smith feeds there as well, and I look forward to seeing great things from Horace Mann. I'm very concerned in the past about that school, and seeing some positive coming out from that is good.
We're excited about it.
Yeah, that was because I'm trying to see, you know, we got Horace Mann, who else, whatever, but I'm trying to see, you know, are we optimistic about progress? You know,
I am very optimistic.
You know,
when you look at the domains, and not to, you know, bore you, but when you look at that, there are 47 indicators. And so when, you know, some of those we missed it by 1% to be a yes, or maybe 2 or 3, but it doesn't matter. It was one kid. It could be one kid and we would get a no. And so when you look at all of the domains, I mean, we have quite a few that we are super close, within 1 to 2, 3% to get a yes. So when I just look at just the data and looking at what we're bringing and just the attitude of the staff, I mean, there's no way it can't improve, because they're working hard, they're willing to do the hard work, and they're very appreciative of the structure that's, you know, that I've brought in. My kids used to joke, well, they used to ask me when I was in the classroom if I was a drill sergeant, and I told them no, but I could be. I just like structure. I like routine. I like it to be, you know, so not that it wasn't before, but that's just kind of, you know, my take on things. I think that if they're not structured and kids are not in the classroom learning, that's where we have problems. And so to head off, you know, you have to head it off at the pass before, in the hallway, at the bus line, in the cafeteria. And the teachers are just very excited about having the PLC structure that I brought with me, and they understand it and they can see the benefit. And so, I mean, we have people that are excited to, learn it and continue with it. So they're all very encouraged by what we're doing.
So have you had much pushback from employees?
No, as a matter of fact, I haven't. Everyone's pretty much, been, and I've tried to do things like give them time. That's one of the things that we talk about where, giving the teachers a planning day. So when we did break down the data and we looked at domain 3 and what it meant and how we fix it, and they were like, we can do this. And I'm like, yeah, you can. And so, and then giving them time to plan. That's a big thing. So they're all very appreciative of it. And so those are just things that I'll continue and just have very high expectations for them as well as myself. I have high expectations for myself, but they all seem to be very willing. I really don't have anybody that I could pinpoint and say, that one's pushing. Nobody really is. So
my last question, you don't have any pushback from someone outside of what you're trying to do and trying to push back and saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that?
Well, there's a way to work around that.
Huh?
And I've made some changes in some staffing and some positions.
Right.
And so put them in a place that they would like to be, and they're working diligently at this point. And, understanding what I can and cannot do in a school day also helps. And so I've had a lot of support from, Mr. Chapa and, Mr. Foxworth. And if I have a question, they'll answer it. But being in it for a long time, I know the rules and I know, so it's kind of, being able to say something to a person before they ask that question and kind of put structure in place that is the way it's supposed to be. And there is no discussion about it because I'm not asking them to do anything that they can't do, that they're not supposed to do.
Okay.
So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that
Okay.
was my next question was how long it's going to take, but if it was 6 years going on, I know it's going to take longer than that.
I do have one more comment, actually. I'm sorry. And I have a friend who works at one of the elementaries that feeds into Horseman. And I guess it's not really a Ms. Cepeda question. It's more of a, admin question. But the gentleman, this is, it's been a couple of years since we talked about this. He was a little disappointed in he didn't know where to begin. He said that, he teaches 5th grade and that his kids had performed greatly. They were going to school, tutoring. And then they got to junior high and by the time they were in 7th grade, it crumbled. And he had told me, he goes, I've developed this plan and I've talked to my principal. And no, it's been more than 2 years. It's been a few more years. He goes, I just feel frustrated because nobody wants to listen to me. I just want to create a cohort where I can continue to talk to my kids and that, that I can tell them, because we all know that junior high, for some reason, the hormones start going everywhere. And, you're either a little kid or you're not really a little kid. You're not really a teenager. You're kind of in between. And it's hard. I don't know if that would be an idea that would be open to, because something is happening. And I know it's not just at Horseman Junior. I know it's happening at probably every junior high, middle school, intermediate in the country because of the age. But where there's there exists those teachers that go a little bit above and beyond that do. And like I said, it's been a few years because his principal now is really great and his principal before is really great. I don't know if maybe that would be something who would he talk to about that?
Tell them to email me. Just email me, and then I'll correspond. But I am absolutely willing to work with the elementaries. I know Kay Cruz and I have talked a little bit, and Bart and I have talked some, and we just, we're all in it together. You know what I mean? Like Kay has asked if she could come over. She said, you have kids that are kind of, not doing right. I'll come talk to them. And having Mr. Munoz from Ashebelle with me this year, he knows a lot of the kiddos, and I think that helps because then he's like, no, I know your parents. I know that they don't go for that. So it helps. And I think they were a little surprised to see him there. So it actually, I think, has helped because he knows the kids and he knows the families that are coming to us. And some of the kiddos came from Alamo, so I know them. And so, I think it makes a big difference because the kids know us. It's not like we're a group coming in with, no one knowing us. But absolutely, tell them just to email me and I'll respond to them, because I'm willing to do whatever it takes, because, we leave, whenever I was at the elementary, our kiddos would go off to the 6th grade, and I'm like the same thing. I just want them to go prepared. And so, yes, and it takes all of us together to really create a total child, just like when my kiddos leave and go to Lee. I want them to step up and be ready to go when they go to that high school, because I know what it's going to be like. And if we don't prepare them, my job at the elementary was to prepare them for the junior high. And now that I'm here, it's like, you've got to be the best you can be in order, when you go to that high school, we have to have you ready. So I know the urgency of it. So
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
no problem. Thank you.
I just have one closing thought or comment, and something that we probably need to look at and plan for in the coming days. Our attendance rate, not just for our students, but for our teachers as well. I think that's something that we might have expressed some concern over in the past, and I know that it's difficult to really fully delve into a campus improvement plan when we are facing a high level and a large expense to the district for teacher absence in the classroom. They're not there, they can't follow through with the plan. So that's something that I'm hoping that we can talk about and come up with some ways that we can address that, because I think, I think these are great plans for working with the students and delivering to them, but we have to have the vehicle for that delivery present. So that's something that I hope that we can talk about in depth in the future and figure out some ways. I hope that, like the teacher incentive allotment coming, into fruition will help with that also, but there may be other ways that we can address some of that to really help our teachers focus back in with these processes for our students. So that's just my challenge to you. And we'll work on that together. Are there any other questions or comments or is that all of our?
We actually
We're
have
actually
a couple.
halfway through, so
Oh
somebody's
my
getting
goodness,
a trophy
you are
tonight.
going for the trophy. We just decided that we're going to make a new trophy. So the other one gets to stay where it lives.
Okay, so if I can get Kay to come up and Rachel McAdams to come up. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
So we'll move into Asheville Smith's plan.
Okay, good evening. What I'd like to discuss is our PLC planning process, which is a process that works from beginning to end. And what we do at the beginning of the year is we meet in vertical teams and we discuss 4 essentials for reading and 4 essentials for math, which we will be working on to ensure student success at the next grade level. And we focus on these during win time. Our grade level teams then get together and they come up with their team norms and their keys to be a successful team. And that helps us hold everybody accountable. On Monday mornings, the administrative team meets and we discuss instructional practices and observations. We go through and talk about each teacher that we observed the week before. We talk about any gaps. We talk about any observations that we had. And we focus on those teachers that may need help throughout the week. So the CISs go in and do their coaching, do demonstrations, do things like that with those teachers that the administrative team has identified as having a need. It could be a concept they were teaching that we felt that was maybe not taught properly or was a little weak, and so they go in and demonstrate, and myself and my 2 assistants go in and demonstrate also. And with that, we come up with a draft for our agenda for PLCs, depending on the campus needs that week. Then we also discuss, based on the needs that we observe, what the administrative team will provide as the teacher for a development session. I have what I call once a month curriculum planning sessions, where whatever I see the feeling is in the campus that they're struggling with, we'll have some type of in-service during 1 day a week that I take once a month to work on those planning meetings and work on whatever that was that I felt needed, they needed help with. For example, it could have been while working on the work, they're not focusing. It could be the standards. It could be their learning objectives, whatever it may be. It could even be lesson planning. But we come up with some type of professional development that we come up with once a month. Then what we also do is we have what I call collaboration meetings. And what we do is we bring in the special ed teachers and the dyslexia interventionists, RTI, everything else, and we discuss with them the needs of these students. So they're a part of what's going on with our students and what their needs are and where a gap may be. Also, during the PLC meetings, all administrators are present. That is a requirement. We hold them per grade level, and we talk about discussions about breaking down the standards, successful practices, interventions, and we track students' progress on what we call data walls. So if you walk into our conference room, we have data all around of our students so that everybody can share. And then we take it one step farther, and we have conversations with the students, and they have their data binders, and we came up with something called the magic number, where each child knows their magic number for math and their magic number for reading. And as we go down the hall, we'll ask a child, what's your magic number? What's your magic number? And they know that that is the goal they need to set for themselves. And this is a process that we've used for years that is helping us get closer to our goals.
Thank you, Ms. Cruz. Any questions for her? Okay, let's move over to Ms. McAdams.
Okay, so San Jacinto has made a lot of growth over the last few years. If you guys have been paying attention, we're kind of one of those unique campuses. We got an 83 overall. We had a B rating. We had a distinction in comparative academic growth, but Domain 1, we did have a D. We did go from a 60 to a 67. So I really think, and Ms. Thomas and I have talked about this, I think we would have been out of there if we'd taken the STAR last year. So we're going to keep going forward. So our first goal is by May 2021 is San Jacinto Elementary will increase meets in all STAR tested areas by 10%. And so to do this, to increase the number of students scoring meets and masters on STAR, we're going to increase the rigor on the campus, increase student ownership in their own learning by providing effective feedback to students throughout the instruction and assessment will practice and steps to become a visible learning campus. This will include a book study on teacher clarity handbook, professional development provided by the campus, our Raise the Rigor task force, which is teachers, and Steve Ventura on the 6 critical components of school improvement, which is our learner distributions, goal setting, feedback, inspired and passionate teachers and leaders, teacher clarity, and collective teacher efficacy. And we actually had one of those trainings this morning. We did feedback this morning. So we're going to continue to grow the capacity of our teachers through collective efficacy, through strengthening our PLC process. During planning, prior to instruction, teachers will plan appropriate interventions for each identified learning target and implement effective RTI campuses aligned to the PLC. And this will occur through the steps outlined in our tiers of intervention. And it'll be monitored through the PLC and RTI meetings. Our second goal, which is probably one of our biggest focus on our campus, is increasing the students' reading on grade level. And so we want to increase the meets grade level standards on or above for the targets for Hispanics, all students, and economically disadvantaged in the area of reading. So one of our big things is to educate the parents on the importance of reading and helping their students in oral language development, especially from an early age. And then as a whole campus, we want to develop a culture of readers. So we have a reading task force, which is all teacher driven, which will create a specific action plan for establishing a culture of readers. They've organized so far book talks, battle of the books, reading clubs, student choice of books, and just getting books into kids' hands is very important. So ensure teachers are aligning questioning levels and assessments with the rigor of STAR reading. And then teachers will set goals for reading levels. These reading levels will be monitored bi-weekly by the leadership team. Students will set goals on a targeted reading skill and strategy. And then we're just going to continue that ongoing professional development that we've had for several years on Fontes and Pinnell, guided reading, balanced literacy, vocabulary, and oral language development.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for her before I get the last two? Okay, thank you. So if we could have Bart and Blanca and Maria come up. Thank you. So Bart, we're going to start with you.
Good evening. Okay, with De Zavala Plan for Improvement Goal 1, by May 2021, Lorenzo De Zavala will score 75% plus in the approaches category for Domain 1. To increase our campus approaches level from a 60% in 2019 to 75% in 2021, we will track students' daily, weekly work, common formative assessment scores, and benchmark assessment scores. With a growth mindset in place, we have set campus goals for each assessment and will have individual goal-setting conferences with teachers, students, and parents throughout the year. Implementing the 15-day PLC challenge process throughout the year to ensure appropriate Tier 1 instruction along with interventions enrichments are pre-planned. Consistent data meetings will be scheduled after each assessment with teachers and students to develop a growth-minded interventions and enrichments which are scheduled daily. To support classroom instruction, we will provide students with additional face-to-face tutorials and online practice using programs such as Success Maker, Education Galaxy, Study Island, Waterford, and Headsprout. We will use this data to determine student mastery of Tier 1 instruction, develop small groups, and to make RTI decisions throughout the year. Goal 2, by May 2021, Lorenzo De Zavala will score a 70% plus in, or a 70 plus in academic progress for Domain 2. This is only 5th grade will be measured this year. Throughout the year, all STAR grade level teachers will use individual student charts to track strengths and weaknesses so students can measure continuous growth. Students document their own growth to share with teachers and parents to ensure all stakeholders are aware of student progress. Students will be assigned interventions based on the TEKS missed on campus and district assessments. And we will implement a similar process for primary students so they are familiar with the process when they enter STAR tested grades.
Thank you, Bart. Do you have any questions for Mr. Cobb?
Mr. Cobb, on these rates you want to try to achieve, which I believe you will, is there some time period you think between now, because you're looking at 19 data, are you talking about from this semester, even though we have a pandemic, till this semester next year, or are you talking about a year's progress, or?
Well, they told me I had to be 75% approaches, 33 meets, and 15 mastery, or else I'm in trouble. So I'm pretty much going to put the effort I have every last breath into that this year.
Okay.
Growth is the main thing, and so that's what we're going to shoot for. And we have our goal in mind. The pandemic or hurricanes, you know, they sometimes throw a barrier in there, but we're really going to shoot for that this year.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll look at this and see. That's going from 0 and 10 to at least 1 and 9. So I'm just interested. If you do something like this, then you should be commended highly.
We're going to give it our best shot.
Okay.
Mr. Samson, I can tell you that based on the data that we had last year before COVID hit, that De Zavala was well on their way. Their benchmark scores showed tremendous increases on student data from the beginning of the year till March. Okay. So I have no doubt that Mr. Cobb will accept the challenge that was given to him, and that they'll do well. It'll take him a little while to get out of the hole, but they're working very, very hard.
Okay. I believe you.
Okay, Blanca, do you and Maria want to go over your Highlands Hopper plan?
Yes, a Highlands Hopper plan for improvement is really just to focus on our PLC process. In 2019, our overall accountability rating was a 68. We were at a D. And Ms. Thomas can affirm to this. In our December benchmarks, we were way well getting out of that. Our campus last year really focused on the growth mindset. And this year we're doing the same. With our PLC process, our teachers are going to maintain data binders to track progress and make instructional adjustments as needed. The students will maintain individual data binders. They'll set goals with the teachers. Just like Kay Cruz said, the kids are going to know what that magic number is. We're going to chart that growth. We're also participating in the 15-day challenge PD from Solution Tree. In the summer, we were trained, our team leaders were trained, and we rolled it out to our campus. Tomorrow we have a half-day training, which we're excited about, and our teachers are as well.
It's going to equip equipment with the tools to create a backwards design assessment plan, which includes developing an end-of-unit assessment and then CFAs in the middle just to check to see where our kids are growing. With Hopper, we work together all the time, me and Ms. Rosas, also with the PLC process. They are looking at essential standards and determined as prerequisites for each grade level K to 2. Our Hopper and Highland CISs work together to make sure that vertical alignment is there. They target to meet the academic needs of all first and second grade students and first grade teachers and our second grade teachers. We're going to be participating in observations with guided reading. We started our work last year, and we're going to take that further into this year as well. Some of the joint practices that we do as a campus is first grade and second grade teachers will participate, like I said, in the observations rounds of guided reading. Our CISs collaborate, and Ms. Rosas is in our hallways talking to our second grade bilingual students, looking at those goals, because in our overall accountability rating, just like previous schools, we didn't receive our 1 point and closing the gaps. We were away by 1%, so we're really focusing on that TELPAS levels. And goal 2, Ms. Rosas will cover, which look the same on both campuses.
Yeah, and we were making great gains with our second grade students, but COVID happened. Okay, for goal number 2, we have the same goal. We provide a well-balanced and appropriate curriculum to all the students. And if you notice, Highlands Elementary has it under strategy 3, and we have Hopper has it under strategy 1, and we have the same strategies formula to do it. So we are going to have our student-led conferences supported by the bilingual department. Ms. Banda, Ms. Belinda Morales, and Araceli Garcia, they're being great, helping us with our students and with our teachers. The bilingual ESL vertical alignment meetings with Highlands Elementary and Hopper, vice versa, we will meet. And we did it last year, and we're going to continue with that this year. It is very beneficial. Collaborative teams will conduct ratings for K, first, and second grade during the school year as determined by the bilingual department and during TELPAS scoring window. And what this means is that we get together and we share the writings that the kids have, and we score them to see if we're really understanding the proficiency levels of each student. The integration of technology, and boy, we're using technology this time, so this is not going to be a problem. We have Seesaw, and this is to, and Highlands Elementary has the Summit program, and this is to help our students because two of the weakest areas in the TELPAS is the listening and speaking. So we want to prepare our first grade students when they go to second grade to really do a great job. The test is so different from first grade. It's holistic, and in second grade it is in the computer.
Online, yes.
So it is different. So we want to prepare our kids, and that's why the technology piece is in there. The bilingual and ESL teachers will conduct an analysis at bilingual ESL meetings every 6 weeks, and this is just to check where our kids are at in their levels.
Okay, since, that was the most fast and efficient presentation, unless y'all have any questions for them, I'm going to yield my time to Dr. McCall.
You're not through yet. You're not through yet. Do you guys share CIS positions, or do you each have 1 or 2?
No, last year she has.
I just have 1 CIS.
I have 2. I have a ELA and I have a math and science.
What does yours do?
Everything.
Everything. Jack of all trades. Okay, cool.
And she assists with science.
Good.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's just a question.
Yes, sir.
All the elementaries, do all the elementaries teach the same curriculum, or as 1 through 5?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I'm a old football guy. I think about competition, and my competition mind is going like, why don't all the elementaries have a competitive situation where who scores the highest for us overall for that elementary against all the other elementaries?
You don't think they do?
Mm-hmm. We do.
They do.
But that's something that we never see, but.
It's internal.
It's it's a little ugly. We don't want you to see all of it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, that's just a question. I didn't know if some was doing this, Highlands was doing this, and someone else was doing this. But I'm just thinking from a competitive standpoint about who, has the highest rating and who has the lowest.
Mr. Samson, that's a great question, and they do. I've walked into buildings that had, we're going to beat this campus on their chalkboard and things of that nature before. But you, Mr. Laredo, Ms. Woods, asked some really good questions, and just in its simplest form, y'all are hitting the nail right on the head. The number one factor, according to research, of a student's success is the quality of instruction in the classroom, being the teacher. The second most important factor for a student's success is leadership, campus leadership. And then the third factor would be district leadership, what we can do to provide professional development and training and so forth. So you asked a couple of pointed questions. They didn't jump straight to it, but specifically, Ms. Cepeda was the highest performing principal for the last 3 years. And she has now been moved to a campus that was struggling and needed assistance. So that was an example of targeted intervention through leadership. That leadership now will transfer into a dialogue, which is common district-wide, the professional learning communities. And you've heard many of them talk about it, and the fidelity by which a campus leader will carry out the professional learning community language and articulation will elevate the consistency of the instruction that's going on in the classroom. The other one, and I'll do it because he's so modest, but he's sitting right here on the front row. Mr. Cobb was at another campus a few years ago and took that campus from the lowest performing campus in the district to one of the highest performing campuses in the district. And we sought out his assistance in taking another campus that was struggling. So we are, at the district office, our primary goal is to support. How can we help? Through professional development, through putting the right people in the right seat on the bus, whatever the case might be, that's our job, is just to help and support and evaluate and provide that feedback. That's what the AED's role is to go to the campuses, find out from the principals what they need.
Well, they looked kind of scared when I asked that question. They was looking at each other like, I didn't want to put a pointed situation like that, but if you are doing that and they moving you around to develop campuses, then I'm proud of you for that. But next time I ask a question like, don't look afraid, just say, we can do it.
Go ahead and pat yourself on the back is what he's saying. It's okay to do that, and it actually brings attention to the fact that we're not going to accept mediocrity. No student deserves mediocrity, so we're going to continue to work and challenge and find the right people in the right spot and get our teachers trained up. And we have so many wonderful teachers across our district doing a wonderful job, and as shown by the campuses that are excelling, and the ones that we're working with right now are those that we've identified through the Moat Casey report, the most at-risk students and needs, and we're meeting those needs. And that's the 100 people in this building. That's what their job is to go and provide that support. Anyway, y'all asked great questions, and I just wanted to share that.
I think it's important to note that our new accountability system focuses heavily on growth, individual student growth. It's not, you get more points in the system, as Ms. Cepeda was talking about, those indicators in Domain 3. Growth is huge in our new accountability system, so we focus a lot on that individual student growth as well.
Okay, we just grow giants, right?
That's right.
All right, thank you all. I just wanted to showcase 6 amazing campuses and what they're working on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Yes, and thank you to all our principals, presenters today. Very good information.
All right.
Dr. O'Brien, you have another report.
Superintendent's report, and I don't think since they're a third party.
Dr. O'Brien, may I interrupt?
Oh,
may I
surely,
request a brief recess?
Brief intermission here.
Please.
Sure, absolutely.
7:52 p.m. We will go into remission.
Before we do, I need to find Mr. Chapa. Did that set a new record for the trophy?
I didn't have the time set. I asked Matt.
All right. The board president's called for a 5-minute intermission.
The time is now 8:02 p.m. and we have returned. So Dr. O'Brien, your Second superintendent report, PASA demographic study.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to let Dr. Capera introduce herself and their presentation this evening.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. We are so pleased to be back in the district tonight. I'm Stacy Tapera. This is Justin Silhavi. We will be presenting the results of this demographic study that we have done that are included in this binder, and you have copies of the binder there to be distributed to the board. We also have large maps if you're interested in seeing those. They're very, very detailed. Some people love them and some people pass on them, but I know they'll be used by the administration for any that aren't passed out to the board. We can always print more. But so this information that we are going to present very briefly tonight is the precursor that will be used for the rezoning that will be discussed in the next portion of this presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Justin and he'll get us started.
Sure. Thank you for having us. And, you know, we have to stop meeting in times of crisis. The last time we were here was fall of 2017, right after Harvey. And I'll tell you that we struggled. You were the first district we worked with right after that, had to make projections for, and I remember struggling with, will there be loss, will there be gain? Ultimately, there was some gain, just like we projected, so I was really fortunate and happy about that. But now we're faced with the COVID-19 pandemic. And so, you know, you've seen a student loss of 3.1%, but in reality, there should have been a little growth as well. So you actually lost a little more than really meets the eye. So we're assuming that that growth will return. The students that were lost will return within a couple of years. We may have a majority return next year, maybe not. We'll see what the next 12 months, how they play out. But one thing's for certain, your housing growth has really returned stronger than it has been in the last 5 or 6 years. So we'll go over that in a little bit. But at first, we want to just go over a few topics of local and regional growth as well as the local economy. One thing, first off, we always love to show is just how you kind of stack up with other districts in Houston Metro. This map is just showing 5 years of enrollment change. You rank 23rd out of about 61 districts with over 750 added students in those 5 years. So you would be what I call a moderate growth district. In terms of percent change, you are a little bit lower on the list at 3.3% because you have a higher student enrollment to begin with. Now, looking back, we have a lot of arrows on this chart. I'm not sure what that's all about, but basically, you had been going up for about 10 years, pretty consistently at 1 to 3%. And then all of a sudden, about 2015, 2016, things started changing, and a lot of that had to do with your petrochemical plants that were under construction. All of a sudden, the construction jobs were gone. Harvey hits, and a lot of things kind of changed. And of course, that downward arrow this year because of COVID changed everything.
And in case you are not familiar, this is not the only district. Everybody in the state, everybody in the nation has had a decline in enrollment this year.
Right.
I'm certain y'all will cover this, but we discovered that 3.1%, about half of it is pre-K.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely would indicate to us either there's the opposite of a baby boom happening right now, or parents are keeping their kids home for safety reasons due to COVID. So,
and that's every school district is facing the exact same dilemma. It's pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, and there's a little bit of loss in grades 1 through 4. Really, once you get to the middle school grades, a lot of districts actually have gained at the secondary level. So you're no exception there. Your pre-kindergarten, I wanted to also mention, you'll see these bars in years 2017, 18, and 19. Your pre-kindergarten was lower in 18 and 19 than it had been in 2017. So that was one reason for those lower elementary, the blue bars, or the elementary enrollment change. One reason those changed. But you'll see the last 3 years, the junior high and the high school enrollments are actually still increasing. And a lot of that's because of that large elementary growth you had 5, 6, 7 years ago. So we take, of course, we have to consider aging into everything we do. And the very first part of aging is figuring out how many of the youngest cohort we're going to have. And we do this with every study. The orange line here are your actual births from mothers in this school district. And we take that data from the Texas Health Department, and we overlay that with kindergarten enrollment. And so we've aged the actual children 5 years so that they align with the year they would enroll in kindergarten. And what we see are, this is a very perfect example of how they correlate. Back in 2013-14, we had a boom, a baby boom, if you will. A lot of that was because of these petrochemical plants under construction, all these added jobs. We also just had a baby boom in general. And then it all kind of went downhill. The recession played a role in that as well. Everyone born, there were just fewer babies born in 2010 and 2011. And then that trickled down 5 years later. And then, of course, what we're seeing now is the line was following the birth. The kindergarten line was following that a little bit, and then it went down this year because that youngest cohort, they didn't come back, or they didn't actually enroll. So we saw that at the pre-K and kindergarten level, but the birth line continues to go up. And with added housing, you can expect that to continue to go up. So real briefly, I have to touch on this. I remember 3 years ago we touched on it. Charter schools continue to expand, but you really haven't seen that in the Baytown area. And it's great for you guys. But one thing I want to point out is that there is a new Idea Public School campus that will be opening next fall. It's technically in Sheldon ISD, right at 90 and the Beltway. So each one of their campuses ultimately will have 1,500 students. They're planning 7 more in the Houston area. They've slowed down their expansion a little bit due to some state oversight, but we don't really know where those additional campuses will be. And we know that the first 3 in Houston have all been on the north and northeast side of the city. So, we just don't know. If one of those were to be planned in Baytown, it would definitely affect your enrollment, and we can talk about that in a little bit when we get to the scenarios of growth. But as for the region...
I hate to interrupt you, but just to interject there, one of the things that we believe as a school district that reduces the exposure to charters moving in is by offering choices. That's what their label is. We offer choices. Goose Creek Schools offers more choices than any district I've ever been associated with, and including the expansion of the early childhood centers that we have coming online next year. And then additionally, we're looking at a virtual academy. So that's sort of been our objective, is to provide all the choices that anyone else could. And then our families and our communities and our students will be happy with the product that we're providing them through Goose Creek CISD. So hate to interrupt you, but
that's fine.
I can't predict, none of us can, but that's your job, and I appreciate you bringing that to the board's attention because it could be something that would impact enrollment, but we're hopeful that by doing the jobs that we're doing, that we'll avoid that.
That's right. And our problem is we can't predict much more than about a year out with these guys. So looking at our regional economy, I hardly even like talking about it these days because it's been, it took such a nosedive back in March. But I just wanted to kind of remind everyone that we were gaining as a metro area 7,000 jobs a month on average in 2018, 19, and the first couple of months of 2020. Right now, the unemployment, it's really bad. It's 18% according to the census. I don't really believe that for a couple of reasons, but regardless, it's a lot lower than it was a year ago at about, it's about double easily. So jobs are rebounding slowly. We're predicting that. Mortgage historically low right now. And that's one reason you're seeing all these homes built everywhere. It's not just in this area. So summer home purchasing really picked up after that initial slump, and we're continuing to see it with these lower mortgage rates. The question, of course, will be what happens long term, still yet to be determined. But a couple of things to note here in the local area. We know that LyondellBasell's Channelview plant is still under construction in the Channelview area. So right now they have a lot of jobs. Those will go away soon. But the petrochemical industry as a whole has kind of slowed down their building boom that we saw 5 to 6 years ago for a lot of reasons. One reason, though, in particular is because there's so much supply coming online in Asia. And so we're kind of competing now with some of those other global markets. But one thing that's interesting always is the e-commerce sector, and being here near the port, we can expect always some large distribution centers to pop up here and there. E-commerce went up from 11 to 16% of all retail sales due to the pandemic. It was already going up annually about 1 to 2%. Now, housing. This is really what drives the growth in general. And I mentioned earlier that we're seeing an uptick in it, and that's true. We have those detailed maps Stacy talked about. We consider all sorts of factors, even limiting factors. So where couldn't you build? We look at this on an annual basis, looking 10 years forward in terms of all types of housing, whether it's single family, apartments, or even manufactured housing communities. And if you're new to the board, or even if you just need a refresher, all of our data that we put together, we break it out by what we call planning units. And so we take your district and all of your attendance boundaries, and we slice them up. And so that all of your school boundaries can fit in some of these planning units when you merge them together. We follow major roads like Grand Parkway or I-10 so that we can have planning units that make sense as you're putting new zoning together, which is what this report is really all about. So all of that data for housing and student projections will be shown as planning unit at the planning unit level. One other thing I wanted to hit on, when we look at new homes and projections for homes, we're not just talking about developments that are currently active. We look forward 10 years. So we have to really consider who might be selling land, what the city planning department has already been notified of. There are a lot of plans out there that are moving forward. You may not see homes for 2 to 5 years, but it's happening. And so we look at, this map right here just shows ownership changes from the Harris County and Chambers County appraisal districts just in the last 3 years. Now, here's what I hit on earlier, annual housing starts. Those blue bars are actual housing starts in Goose Creek CISD. They really slumped in 2017 and 2018. You were having less than 300 homes built every year. They're already up to over 400 in 2020, and the year's not even over yet. So as we see more homes under construction because of a lot of these new developments, we can expect more students living in them. One in particular, the one we were waiting for, Friendswood Development's Baytown Crossing, as of last month, still had they already had 33 homes occupied, and you already had students in those homes. 82 are under construction. So we have a staff member that goes out and follows the construction. We actually drive these neighborhoods to know what the current status is. As when we get that student count from you guys, we know how many bodies are actually in these homes that are occupied and how many homes are now about to come online. So we know this development could have upwards of 2,000 homes. That final number hasn't quite been determined yet, but it is right now your biggest development, of course, in the district. Southwinds also got started in these last year or two. 65 homes are already occupied. We're expecting about 433 total lots, plus the 2 apartments that are now leasing up. Future development, I've listed a few tracks here, but I'll talk about them here in a minute. This map right here is a hotspot map showing by planning unit the number of homes that are projected to be occupied in the first 5 years, so through 2025. And you can see there are a couple of hot spots. That Baytown Crossing planning unit up there in the north, that's the big hot spot. But then there are a few others. Some south along Garth are where a couple of apartment properties are planned. So we wouldn't, of course, expect as many students in those as we would in some of the single family communities to the north. But what I really wanted to focus on for a minute here is looking out. So again, we look at what's on the books or what's being planned currently. And a couple of things stand out here. Those developments there that are listed as pieces of land, Cox Track, Soul Track, those are going through planning processes right now. A lot of them, they've got development agreements with the city of Baytown. So this has really increased. Activity has increased from 3 years ago. So for instance, the Cox Track is off John Martin along Battle Bell. They're planning about 400 homes. There's a tract south along John Martin I call it the Wong Track. It's owned by a gentleman named Wong. That development is planned for about 500 homes. So there are lots of new developments coming up that you may not even be aware of. And even beyond this, there could be even more. But they really are focused in that north part of the district, that north central part of the district. So that's where a lot of our growth is going to be. Looking at that 10-year number, we ended up with a 9,575 housing units projected in the 10-year period. Most of those are single-family homes by far. A lot of Baytown's multifamily regulations have been changed and altered over the last 3 to 4 years. So there's a little bit of more limit to where apartment builders can build in Baytown. So single family is really where it's at now moving forward. And really, I think you're now more seen as a suburban community than you were even 10 years ago. You were more of an isolated community. Now you're really kind of in the hotspot of growth. So our single family, we can expect in the next 2 to 3 years, over 400 homes a year, increasing to upwards of 600 occupancies every single year in a couple of years. We look at your current students, I mentioned that earlier, and so we geocode them to the map. We essentially find out where they live, get their address, and we have an accuracy of almost 100% for that. We create counts by neighborhood. And those allow us to develop ratios of students per home in each individual neighborhood or apartment complex. And those help us in projecting future neighborhoods, new ones such as Baytown Crossing, that just got going, so we can get a better feel for how many students will be living in those homes. And district-wide, the average number of students per single-family home is 0.62. It's 0.37 for apartment. Now, that 0.62 isn't the case everywhere. So those neighborhoods new north of I-10, in many cases, there are 0.85 to 1 student per home. Very popular with families north of I-10 along Garth. So we altered those projections based on where these developments are. We can't assume every neighborhood is going to have the same number of students per home. So let's talk about those student projections. Once we put all of this data together on an annual outlook, we put projections together based on the October snapshot. So we're not projecting for day one, we're not projecting for May, we're projecting for October every single school year. And that's, of course, when your enrollment snapshot is sent to TEA, the official tally. So that's the last week of October. We put together 3 scenarios of growth. We'll always suggest you follow the moderate scenario of growth because, of course, it's in the middle. We've prepped for that. And that's used for all planning documents in this report and everyone that Stacy will be talking about in terms of schools. So let's look at that moderate growth scenario because now this year it's a little wonky. So for 2021, that very first number there, we're anticipating over 24,000 students, an increase of over 800. Now that's assuming that roughly 70 to 85% of these students that were lost due to COVID or didn't enroll. You know, it's possible that you don't get that quite many in year one. Maybe they mostly come back in 2022. We've never dealt with this before. But assuming they do come back in the first 2 years, this is our best case scenario. And remember, we're also having to tack on growth for 2021. It's not just the students who didn't attend this year. We're also considering students who are going to be new to the district from all of this new housing. Moving forward, things level out. And so we're looking at continued growth of maybe 200 to 300 students a year. Again, remember, housing really picked up compared to, say, 2 to 3 years ago when you were only gaining 50 to 100 students. And then kind of rounding out the growth, we end up with over 26,000 students by 2030. So looking at these 3 scenarios, that dotted line is your moderate growth scenario I just went over. But I do want to point out that high and low. That low growth scenario, really, the focus of it was considering a charter school moving into Baytown because we just have to. Now, we don't know when it would happen. If we have to kind of spread that loss out in this low growth scenario. If it happened in 2022, you would have a pretty major dip right away, but we don't know. But you could immediately, by the 10-year period, you may not grow much at all if that happens. Again, the high growth scenario, though, might assume even more growth. Some of these land tracts that are being planned right now maybe get going sooner than we anticipated. Maybe the Houston economy really picks up after COVID. We don't know yet. So we've assumed for a little bit more growth in the high growth scenario. But really that dotted line is what you need to follow. The next year or two might be a little challenging. So with that, I'll let Stacy take over regarding long-range planning for your campuses.
So all of these numbers district-wide don't mean as much. Well, they mean a lot to the budgeting people, but for planning at the campus level, we need to understand where these students are going to be living and how that relates to the current and planned schools in the district. And so this is another hotspot map similar to the one you saw for housing, but this represents new students, in this case, new elementary students. Not surprisingly, the hotspots are in the same general areas of single-family housing, Baytown Crossing in the north, as well as South Winds in the east and Trinity Oaks in the south. But how does this relate to the elementary attendance zones? Where is this growth as related to the attendance zones? So not surprisingly, the red area is the Benuelos attendance zone. That is projected to gain the most students in the next 10 years at over a 1,000 student gain in Benuelos. That's definitely the leader of the pack, with about 200 students projected to be added to Victoria Walker and Harlem, each, as well as almost 200 to Clark on the east side. So what is the plan for addressing this growth? The first step in this long-range planning, the district is currently rebuilding San Jacinto in the south, and that's scheduled to be open in January of 22. The second step is Elementary 17 in Baytown Crossing, and that is scheduled, planned to be open in fall of 22 in order to tackle the growth there at Benuelos, as well as possibly some of the others. And finally, step 3 would be potentially a new elementary in the east side near South Winds. However, the timing for this is still yet unclear. The district does not have bond funds for this school yet anyway, and so really we're just recommending to take a wait-and-see approach on this and get a better feel for how things settle down after COVID and how much overcrowding Clark can handle will really drive the timing for that next elementary in the east. At the junior school level, that's the primary reason for commissioning this study, is for the new junior school 6 or green to be opened. But first, before we get to that, the growth, of course, in the north is focused in Highlands Junior as well as Gentry. Highlands is projected to grow by over 400 students over the next 10 years, and Gentry by almost 300, or just over 300 students. And so the location of Green Junior School in the north, scheduled to be open next fall, was designed to relieve that overcrowding at Highlands and Gentry. Those attendance zones, of course, have not been decided. That process will be discussed in just a few minutes, and it will be started shortly in order to decide exactly how those attendance zones will be drawn. So at the high school level, of course, the growth is focused in the north of the district, and Goose Creek Memorial has the attendance zone contains the majority of that high growth population. Before you get too anxious about these numbers, please be reminded that these represent resident students. These are the students that live within these attendance zones of the 3 traditional high schools. However, the district pulls a lot of students out of each of all 3 of these attendance zones to attend Stewart and Impact Early College. And so the numbers I have included here in red represent the projected enrollment once assuming that the participation Impact Early College will remain stable over the next 10 years, but the enrollment at Stewart Career Tech will increase as the new capacity comes online, and each entering ninth grade class we project will increase at a rate similar to the past few years of growth in that ninth grade class. And so therefore, the district's effort to pull students into these special programs out of the traditional high schools provides the capacity relief that those traditional high schools need. So with that, I will summarize just to say that currently the plan is to first open E.F. Green Junior School next fall, and that zoning process, as I mentioned, will begin soon. And you'll hear more about that process here just in a few minutes. The next step would be at the elementary level, opening the new San Jacinto Elementary School in January of 22, as well as Elementary 17 in the north in the fall of 22, and then later Elementary 18 at a date to be determined. So at that point, we can answer any questions.
Will we be receiving this information?
Right over there.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't necessarily have a question per se, but kind of a curiosity about our early learning centers. I know obviously once San Jacinto Elementary is rebuilt, that won't have a big issue there, but in those binders, do you have the numbers for the campuses, their enrollment capacity, their capacity numbers, are those in there with them?
Absolutely, yes.
So that we can look at what the campuses can contain nicely.
Yes.
All right, because then with Hopper and Highlands, if we go to the phase of using, per se, Hopper as an early learning center for the north side, that will reduce the elementary capacity in that area.
I don't know if Ms. Garcia was able, excuse me, I don't know if Ms. Garcia was able to share that with you, but moving forward, the concept of early childhood centers means that we will be considering pulling pre-K students off of our traditional campuses. We won't do that until the curriculum model is in place and running and until those buildings are completed. So, for example, the example she gave was for Hopper. Well, that won't be available until elementary number 17 is completed. But I don't think it changes the numbers per se, it just changes where they're educated at. So with 1,000 students across our district in pre-K, divide that by 3, we're looking at 3 campuses of 300, 350, somewhere in that ballpark. But they're the same students that are already within your number. So I don't think it impacts us, it's just where they'll be at. And it could be a zoning issue, I think, is what she's asking. And our consideration would be that they'd be in the high school zone somewhere located within each of the 3 high school zones in north, south, and central.
Right, and I guess maybe what I meant to get at was that currently Hopper Highlands takes about 1,200 or so pre-K through 5 students, but once that early learning center takes over the Hopper campus, then we'll be down to only able to accommodate, I think, 800 at the Highlands campus in the K through 5 grade levels. So some of those kind of things will affect the numbers that we can rezone. But maybe that's in the next rezoning.
Right. It's not my understanding that will be taking place now. That will be happening next fall.
Yeah, Dr. McCall's sitting back there giving me the eye, like, we're not ready for that. Slow down.
Slow your jets.
It's our professional recommendation that you wait until next fall to zone for
any of that, right?
Next year.
Okay, so do you have more for us, like a plan for the rezoning process, or is that our next? Okay.
That's next.
Well, Will they be joining you, or are y'all done?
They're joining, and
Okay, great.
I'll be here for support in
Okay.
case you have any questions.
Ms. Christy
And
Lee
I want a map.
and Matt Bollinger, please come join
Or
us.
2 or 3. I love maps.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
Good
Are you gonna go for the trophy? You gonna see if you can knock Susan off her pedestal here tonight?
We're going to be short and sweet tonight.
You don't get to vote.
That's a pretty long list of slides there, Mr. Bollinger.
Say it again.
Might get that trophy.
Try to be short and sweet. So Christy Leith and myself, along with Stacy Tapera, are going to go over the process for rezoning. And we wanted to share a few items with you. We did want to point out, this summer we finally produced the facilities vision guide, which contains some of these projects are now coming to fruition. And so as we were thumbing through it earlier, the cover page for the future facilities was the groundbreaking for E.F. Green Junior School. And so it's exciting just to see that if you drive by there, you see the building going up, you see the beams being established. And so that's what brings us here this evening. And so for the second part of the presentation, we wanted to discuss just the process for rezoning, and we'll cover the purpose and objectives along with overview of the rezoning process that we are proposing. Also want to talk about the timeline that will be involved and the resources that we're utilizing for the rezoning decisions that will be made. In general, and this comes from previous rezoning projects, our main objectives, and this is just any time we do rezoning, include rezoning in a way that supports effective use of school facilities and also district resources, making sure that we're rezoning considering the financial burden and also just the facilities and the resources that we have in the district. Also, reducing overcrowding of campuses. So if you look at our junior school numbers, you know that there are some issues with overcrowding, and so that's why we built a 6th junior school. Plan for future growth. And so in the previous presentation with school accountability and school improvement plans, we heard the term growth mindset quite a bit. Well, this is literally a growth mindset. It's exciting to see all of the neighborhoods and all the housing starts that are happening in Baytown. I mean, we're excited to see that growth, and we know there's some setbacks with the current situation with the pandemic, but seeing those houses continuing to build, as a district, we want to grow with those developments and make sure that we're planning accordingly. Making sure that we rezone with contiguous borders as much as possible, and our goal is to reduce pocket zoning as much as possible when that's a possibility. Also to involve the community when we rezone as much as possible, to get public forums, to get public feedback, public input, and then to evaluate the students' proximity to a campus. And so we know that when families live closer to the school, that's more convenient. We know that families prefer that. And so that's also a consideration. And then also, probably the most important point is to make sure that when we're making rezoning decisions, that we're considering what's best for the students. And so in general, those are our objectives. For this specific purpose, we are primarily rezoning, as was stated, for E.F. Green Junior School, and we know that by rezoning the sixth junior school, that will also alter the attendance zones for several other junior schools as well. Another goal for this project is to establish a pure feeder pattern at the secondary level. And so with the sixth junior school, we know that we'll have, for every traditional high school, we'll have 2 junior schools. And so there's an opportunity to have a pure feeder pattern. It's hard to say, pure feeder pattern, where 2 junior schools would feed into 1 high school, so that students who go to the same junior school campus, they would see their peers at the same high school at the traditional level. Also, we want to make sure that we're aligning our numbers to match campus capacity. So again, we know that for some of our junior schools, they're over capacity. So E.F. Green Junior School will solve that issue. And then also and I think this point is important as well, not only to meet the educational needs of students, but also to make sure that we're developing a grandfathering process so that we're able to at least minimize or reduce the amount of disruption that happens whenever there's a transition period. And so during the transition period, we want to make sure that we're considering just ease of grandfathering process based off the needs of the families. Mrs. Leith is now going to talk a little bit about our overview of our process.
Sure, and I'm not sure I can talk through this mask, but I'm going to try. I was just thinking, I've been here almost 20 years, which is really, I really can't believe it. I was sitting back there thinking about that. It's gone so quickly. But during that period of time, the district has implemented various models underneath various people actually leading those. I can think back to when we had a community-based model, and then another time we went the other extreme and had an internal committee that was really independent of community input. And then I even remember when I know the board, if I'm not mistaken, handled some rezoning. So when we were thinking about planning, the planning process for this whole rezoning this year, we contacted Stacy and asked her from their company what would they recommend from what they see in regards to best current practice. And so that's what we're going to propose to you tonight in regards to what process we implement. And basically it involves two of the models I just mentioned to you. It would be an internal committee, but yet it has a vehicle for community input, actually multiple opportunities for that. So that's what I'm going to take you through. So based on current best practice, as recommended by PASA, a district rezoning task force would be assembled, and it would be composed of a broad range of Goose Creek staff. The demographic study would be disaggregated and reviewed by the task force. And then several starter rezoning options, which Stacy has already started on, they would be provided to us, and then that task force would review, discuss, and evaluate those. Adjustments would be made to those rezoning options, and then it would be made, obviously, by recommendations from the task force. From there, your community involvement kicks in through a couple of different avenues. One being an online survey for those that opt that might be what suits them best, or perhaps they don't want to, because we're in the middle of a pandemic, be part of a public forum. But then for others that really prefer to be in person and give their input, then we have a couple of different public forum opportunities for those folks. So once we get that input, the task force would take that and make adjustments to the rezoning options based on that public feedback. And then a final report would be presented to you with a recommendation for consideration.
Okay, so regarding the timeline, you can see the timeline up here is starts now. And so tonight is our board presentation. Then beginning next week, we would start our rezoning task force meetings over the next 3 weeks throughout November and early December. Once we have those meetings, like Christy said, and we would exchange information and data and input with PASA, then we would prepare our documents for the public. And then beginning in January, we would have zoning options for the public to review, to analyze, and then also opportunities to provide feedback and input based off those zoning options that are put out there. Once that public piece is completed, the task force would meet again in late January to review the feedback, to analyze the comments, and then make necessary adjustments based off of the feedback that we have received from the public. And then the goal is to provide the recommendation to the board at the February 1st board meeting. Pending approval, we would then begin to prepare our communication plans to families based off the decision that was made and approved by the board. Resources, just want to show you real quick, several resources that we have been using and will continue to use. Of course, the population and survey analyst data that's been provided, we'll use that data to drive some of our decision making. district resource personnel from various departments to make sure that we have input from all departments. Also, historical data relating to rezoning, looking at some things that have worked in the past for Goose Creek and also things that have not worked. And then also the public commentary and feedback would be another resource that we would utilize throughout the process. And that's our presentation. So at this time, we'll be glad to attempt to answer some questions.
Would you go back to the calendar, a couple of pages? Yeah.
December 18th?
Yeah. After the task force meetings in November, would it be possible to present what's going to the public in a board workshop or some setting like that for us to poke holes in before it goes out to the community?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like maybe the documents that you're preparing for the public that, you know, we can, in December, if we get that, you know, sometime in December before it's sent out in January to the public. That way you could get board feedback before you get community feedback.
Certainly.
And avoid some dancing at the end?
We're all about avoiding dancing.
Or the public saying, have you seen this yet?
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody heard what you just said.
I always get that from the public. Have you seen this yet? No.
Yes, that would be good.
But a lot of times I can say, yes, I have.
We'll be glad to have a workshop. Yeah, and we were planning on providing that in board updates, but I think a workshop would allow us to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Because I like to disaggregate data.
So we might have used a model that combines all three methods now.
That would be correct.
Makes sense.
So December 15th, 16th, or 17th, a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday
Before the break.
before the break.
Do we have a regular meeting anytime there, or is this extra?
Our December meeting's the 7th.
December 7th is our December meeting. Because it could even, if it's not a workshop, it could just be a report, a board report that we could have conversation about.
On the 7th?
If that's enough time. If not,
May not be enough
I would like to look at the calendar.
Yeah. Look at the.
I don't.
I'm sorry. What did you say?
Ms. Garcia, do we have something on the 14th of December?
A workshop?
I don't have it.
I don't have it on my calendar.
That doesn't mean, no? Okay, no. Let's give it a not yet. Yeah, not yet.
No, but we have a little bit of time. So if you want to look at your calendar and see what you think would be better, if we want to do a special workshop meeting, or if you want to present it as a superintendent report update on the 7th or something, so that we have some time to see it before it's sent out for public comment.
And I think when we get closer to that date, we'll have a better understanding of where we are in the process as well.
Right.
Because it'll be interesting to see if we're doing true feeder patterns, you know, then obviously we're rezoning high school at the same time. I mean, in effect, because there may be some lines tweaked there.
Upset somebody.
I did I say that out loud? Matt Hollis, you strike that from the record.
It may or may not be necessary to rezone the high schools.
To change the high school boundaries based on what the junior highs split up into six.
I've just barely started the process of looking at some possible options, and my approach was to let's think about the simplest, least disruptive way that we can open this junior school and move the fewest kids. And
obviously, yes, absolutely.
And so the first working option that I've come up with does not move any high school lines. However, there needs to be some conversation within the task force, with the board,
According to
with
your
the community
numbers for future, obviously some of the high schools will be experiencing some growth more than others.
equal enrollment at each school. If you have some schools with more students than others, even if they all fit, if they still are under capacity, is that a priority for the district? And how much of a priority is it if it means moving a high school line? So those are all discussions to be vetted out through the process.
Rezoning is a domino game.
That's right.
Any other questions or comments for the committee that has a big, huge challenge ahead?
It's an aggressive schedule, and I think it can be done.
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
So now, could you push my button, please? I can't see it. Did you turn me off?
Not on purpose.
I would have. Okay, so that puts us at the end of our superintendent reports. Dr. O'Brien, number 7, we have action items, consideration of consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Action item 7A1, district and campus improvement plans, approval. Number 2, amend Goose Creek CSD board policy DNA local, performance appraisals. Number 3, school health advisory council, SHAC member appointments. Number 4, agreement addendum with Specialized Assessment and Consulting, Inc. to provide additional evaluation services. Number 5, construction manager at risk, CMAR, evaluation rankings and selection. Delegate authority to the superintendent or designee to negotiate and to approve the contract and subsequent guarantee maximum prices with COMEX Construction or subsequently ranked contractors for the robotics facility project. Number 6, competitive seal proposals, CSP, evaluation rankings and selection of or delegate authority to the superintendent or designee to negotiate and to approve the contract and subsequent amendments with the athletic field specialist or subsequently ranked contractor for the junior school running tracks project. Number 7, first option to extend CSP for fine arts equipment, supplies, and related services. And number 8, tax refunds. Administration would recommend approval of these consent agenda items. Be happy to answer any questions you may have, and or my team.
I have a question in regards to the SHAC members that we're recommending. I didn't see the list.
No.
It's not in our, my board book won't open again now, all of a sudden.
If we're going to approve them, I'd like to.
Look at that. Nothing to see here.
There's nothing to see.
Nothing to see here, Matt.
Did I push the wrong? Oh, sorry. I pushed the wrong button.
No, I'm on here. It just when I stop.
Nope, that's the right button. Well, if it makes you feel any better, mine's doing the same thing.
I probably do. Is yours doing the same thing?
It died. You have to turn it on again, I think.
I don't want to turn it on.
Don't watch it.
Okay. Yeah, well, I did. I've re-signed in a couple of times. So, yeah, board book. Logged in, nothing to see here. I don't know what I did, but I didn't go in the way some of them go in.
I don't even see
I always go through my email, but you do it through here.
Because you're on a different computer. Know your board book.
You don't.
I think that's it.
Nothing.
Mr. Bollinger or Dr. McCall, did y'all have a roster for the SHAC committee? You do have a roster?
Okay, so.
Not included in the backup.
Am I supposed to be? All right.
Just the letter, speaking of the text, is Education Code 2028.04A. Says the board will approve the SHAC committee annually, but it doesn't have the roster of the members. If you have that roster available, you could email it to me and I could make it available to the board right now, where they would move forward with the approval process.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I would recommend tabling this item until such time that we can provide that roster to the board for approval.
Yeah.
We can pull it for now if we can get the list here
Yeah, while we're here.
After
While
closed
we're here.
session, maybe come back
Yeah.
out and approve
So
it?
we can pull it for consideration after closed session if we can get that list.
The other thing I was gonna mention was I wanted to thank you guys as a teacher, not here, but as a teacher, that for waiving for the T-test for the teachers that qualify for this. I know right now it's really hard for our teachers, and I know that we've done some concessions as far as giving them time. This is just another way that I think, I mean, obviously there's some notes in there where some teachers can't do that, but I think a lot of our teachers are going to take advantage of this, and it's going to be a good thing because it's a difficult year as it is. So I appreciate you guys for doing that. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
And that, amount, yeah. Speaking of the waiver, that's just for this calendar year, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
For number 2.
Yeah. And then under the, one of the campus improvement plans specifies that there's a huge gap in SPED results, which we all know and agree with and understand why. But they put in their CIP that it's because the STAR instrument is the wrong assessment for those kids, which we also all agree with. But I'm not sure that's something I'd like to see in the CIP.
I can tell you there's a statewide push to bump STAR, and we've not received any relief implications at this point in time. So, but I do know that many teachers across the great state are communicating with Texas Education Agency and our commissioner, and he has to be having it under consideration with his council.
Especially for that population.
Correct.
Yeah. And I agree with all of that, but putting it in a CIP is kind of bold. And maybe we need bold. That's my 5 cents worth.
Some of us like bold.
I'd like to move that we approve consent agenda items A1 through 2 and A4 through 8.
I'll second.
So I have a motion to approve action items on the consent agenda, A1, 2, and 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 by Mr. Laredo. I have a second by Mr. Clem. If there's any more conversation, question?
Yeah, on number 7.
Number 7, first option to extend CSP for fine arts equipment, supplies, and related services.
What fine arts? That's all I want.
It's the equipment that we purchase for our students for fine arts, and we have a vendor, and this is an extension of that contract to enable us to continue doing business with that contractor without posting for the general public to apply again. We're satisfied with this vendor, and we're requesting an additional extension.
Does that include band or anything like that?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, there's a list prepared by Mr. Villalba about of the fine arts equipment and supplies, et cetera.
Page
It's just,
34.
yeah, it's the vendors, 34 and 35. Yeah, this is to, this is the current contracts awarded to vendors for,
And it includes the band, right?
Yes, sir.
it includes all fine arts.
Fine arts.
Okay. I
Vendors
just wanted to
allowed,
approve it with Mr. Clem being on the board.
Mr. Clem? Is everybody on there? Swice Good Music is on here, and et cetera. Yeah, there's Woodwind and Brasswind Inc.
The majority of anything else fine arts would need is on the buy board or some other co-op. So even if it's not on this list, it's still available to our folks.
For the record, I was just kidding.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. One more time to jerk my chain.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve the action items as stated. All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
Did we lose Mr. Cotter? Mr. Cotter, is he still on?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yes.
Okay, so any opposed to this consent agenda? Any abstaining? Okay, so Mr. Cotter, I didn't get you. Did you say aye?
I said aye on the first, yes.
Okay, there you go. Thank you. I must have been talking. Okay. So that is 6-4-0 against, 1 absent. Motion passes on consent agenda items 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We will reconsider number 3 if we have the member list when we return from closed session. We have it? Okay. So we'll get a chance to look at that, and we'll revisit consent agenda item number 3. So let's move to 7B, future board agenda items, board training, and board meetings. I do know that we have a meeting next week. Let's start with future board agenda items. If there's anyone who has future board agenda items at this time for suggestions.
I've got a question for the possibility of a future item.
Okay.
Dr. O'Brien, it's my understanding that coming up this spring, TEA is asking all districts to develop and turn in by the spring a sort of district equity plan. Is that correct?
Did you hear that, Dr. O'Brien?
I actually heard bits and pieces of it. So are we planning an equity policy and a plan for the spring semester?
A district equity plan.
District equity plan.
That's what we're working on right now with Dr. Cleveland.
But I think his question was, is that something that's maybe being required by TEA? Do we know?
No.
Okay.
No, that's a board request.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Cotter? Yeah, we lost you. Okay, but that is something, of course, for our future board agenda items, district equity plan, and our process for developing that. And if that, I think we talked about at our workshop that an audit would be something that we were very interested in to begin the process. I think Mr. Bollinger, you were, is that where we're going to start maybe with that process for the plan, is through an audit first?
Yes, the steps that he walked us through.
Okay.
I believe we're moving forward.
Right, to help get that process. Okay.
We said we would retain Dr. Cleveland throughout that process as needed.
He speaks, or when y'all are speaking, you can.
Okay, I'm going to turn off my mic.
Give him a second.
Can you hear us, Mr. Cotter? Mr. Cotter, you were coming in and out when you spoke, but if I understood your question, it was, are we developing an equity policy and council as a request of the Texas Education Agency? And the answer to that, if that was your question, is no. This is an internal driven process requested primarily from various board members. I hope that helped answer your question.
Okay, well, Mr. Cotter, maybe we can hear from you on a better line shortly. Moving forward with future agenda items, and Ms. McKay, you're back here. I don't know if it's Ms. Jackson or both of y'all together, but like the teacher incentive allotment, if we could have maybe an update in the next month or two or so on that process, where we are, how long that application process takes?
That's a part of House Bill 3, and I believe we're 2 years out. Is that correct?
Ron Dr. White has been leading that process, and
Okay.
I believe we're still out.
Right.
Okay. Well, and so maybe like in January, February, sometime, if we get an update on that process, if y'all can kind of educate us on where we are, what the next steps are, when we can expect to, see some of that come in. And then one thing that I brought up earlier.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
He was like that in high school.
He was. Okay. We were talking earlier, or I brought up earlier about teacher
Enter your
attendance.
attendee ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number,
Yeah, right.
press pound to continue. Your entry 4 is not valid. Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound. If you do not know your attendee number, press pound to continue. You can join the meeting after the host admits you.
Run, Matt, run.
You will now be connected to the meeting.
Mr. Cotter, can you hear us now? Are you here? We hear you.
Fantastic. That's great. Okay. So, if I haven't lost my chance, I know that the district is supposed to have, or I believe that the district is supposed to have a district-wide equity plan turned into TEA by the spring. Is that correct, Dr. O'Brien?
Ginger, you're shaking your head. Do you know? Okay.
I can't hear anything, by the way.
So, Mr. Cotter, did you hear that at all? Ms. McKay was.
Not at all.
Okay, Ms. McKay said that we do have an equity plan that was submitted to TEA 3 years ago, and we have not had any cause. They have not asked us to resubmit or update since then because it meets the criteria. So the equity plan that we're working on now, which is what Dr. O'Brien was saying earlier, is an internal policy that we are, at the request of several board members, that we are going deeper for our own purposes here within the district, but that we are already in compliance with the TEA's equity plan.
Could we in a future report, could we take a look at that plan just as a starting point?
So you want to take a look at it? Well, and one of the things I think when you couldn't hear us, we were talking about with Mr. Bollinger, is that we're looking at starting that process with Dr. Cleveland by doing a district-wide audit, that we want to start there first with a district-wide audit, equity audit, and then move forward in the process. And absolutely, I could see us pulling in our current TEA approved equity plan to improve upon that for our own purposes here. But as far as the TEA goes, we're in compliance with them.
Well, I'm looking at the TEA website right now, and they're saying that LEA's new equity plans for the 2021 school year will be due in the spring of 2020. That previous to 2019, those plans have been going through a specific type of process, but now they're going through a different type of process, I believe, and that to continue to receive the Title I funds, that an updated plan is to be developed and submitted by the spring. And I was just curious to see what that might look like and where we would stand on that. That's all.
So what you're talking about is something different. It's regarding the expenditure of Title I funds. And that's
right.
So it's two different things, I believe, what you're referencing and what we're doing as a district.
I realize those are two different things. I'm specifically asking in regard to the Title I funds.
So that would be something that Ms. McKay would be able to bring to us in January or early spring? Okay.
Sure.
All right, perfect. She's shaking her head yes.
Okay, thanks.
So the more information correspondence will come out in December, according to the one you're referencing, Mr. Cotter, the Title I. Okay, so we'll look forward to that early 2021. Okay, and so then I was talking about I'd mentioned earlier that if there was some way that we could work on some more maybe attendance incentives for our staff. I think that we need to look at that. I know we talked about last year a little bit our substitute teaching situation, how we are in a deficit for substitutes, but yet we spend, I believe the sum was around $5 million a year on substitute teachers as it is. And when I kind of think when we're looking at our campus improvement plans, teachers have to be a part of that and they have to be present. And if there's some way to incentivize or reward those teachers whose attendance is as good as or better than the students' attendance on the campuses, find us some money, Mr. Chapa. Take it out of that substitute money. We'll pay that money that we spend on substitutes to the teachers if we can get them to not take all their days in the fall.
One of the things that another school district is doing, I won't say which one, but if you're here, like what they've done is we had summer graduation. So if you work summer graduation, the kids are off tomorrow. They got comp tomorrow. If you're here every day, I don't remember I think it's a semester, you're off January 4th as an incentive for them. So that might be an idea that, I know Dr. O'Brien said there's some cost to that as well, but it might be an idea to give our teachers a little bit of relief also. If they're here every day, they get, one of the PLC days or something.
And I like that idea, except that it kind of is an attendance issue as well. The goal I have in mind is to have them here more than not. So if there's some way to incentivize that, maybe monetarily even, if we're saving money on substitutes, let's give some. We can't give bonuses, can we? Excuse me. That's 9 o'clock, y'all. Let's go. Okay, so that would be a future board agenda item. Hopefully that we can look into doing some kind of attendance reward incentive for teachers to help out. Any other future agenda items?
Can we go ahead and approve this item from consent?
Yes, sir. That's what we would request at this time, to approve the Student Health Advisory Council SHAC member appointments as has just been distributed to the board members.
Okay, so we're going back to 7A, number 3.
I'd like to move for approval.
Mr. Cotter, did you get a chance to see these? Did we put this up for Mr. Cotter to see? This is the proposed School Health Advisory Council appointed members for 2020 and 2021. Mr. Cotter, did we lose you?
No, I said I've had a chance to see them.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay. All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Laredo, is that correct? And a second by Mr. Poppy to accept the appointed members as presented. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand or say aye. And Mr. Cotter, I didn't hear you. If you.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we have 6 for, 0 against, and 1 absent. Motion passes approving appointed members for SHAC. All right, so back to 7B, future board agenda items, board trainings. We have a workshop coming up next week on the 9th. What is that, November the 9th? On Monday.
Regarding communication, social media training.
Regarding communications and social media training. And then any other, we have a board meeting on the 16th, a regular meeting?
We do?
I'm asking. That was a question, I'm sorry. So we just have one in November.
I think we have like 3 in December.
Right, so.
So far. Yeah.
All right, so no regular meeting on the 16th. And then December, you said we have, what?
The 7th.
December the 7th.
So far.
And then we're looking at a possible workshop for rezoning plans in December. Is there anything else, Ms. Garcia? I noticed that our Region 4 Gulf Coast meeting was moved to virtual tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, yes. Gulf Coast Association of School Board Members, Region 4, a dinner meeting at the Region 4, but it's a virtual now. You want to go, you can come.
Why don't you push the board meeting on December 7th?
For December? So the suggestion is for December to push the December 7th board meeting to December 14th, that week before we get out, and that would give us the opportunity to have the workshop and the meeting, et cetera, all